How would Mao Zedong cope with Trump? Das ist actually ein Video, das ich sehen möchte. Also das ist actually ein Video, das ich sehen möchte. Das ist verrückt. How would Mao Zedong cope with Trump? Okay, let's fucking go.
就是说，他们要打毒酒就打毒酒。一次打到混水胜利。
Do you know who gets brought up most in China now that we're in tariff war? One hint, it's not Trump. In this video, I'm going to show you why and how Chairman Mao has become the most talked about figure in China at this very moment. In a collective memory of the Chinese people, Mao is remembered for pushing back US forces during the Korean War and securing a stable external environment for China's economic development, crucial for the newly established socialist country. Today, his advice feels more relevant than ever. I'm going to list some of Mao's most quoted strategies in discussions about the ongoing tariff war. The first one is, throw one punch to prevent 100 blows. This catchy phrase was firstly used by Mao Zedong to explain his decision to send the troops to the Korean peninsula. And it's now being borrowed quite often in the conversations about tariffs. When Trump first launched the trade war in 2018, public opinions in China was divided. Many questioned whether China, to some extent, deserved the punishment. Was its aggressive wolf warrior diplomacy or alleged violations of trade rules that provoked the US? However, these voices have largely disappeared. Years of trade wars, high-tech blockades, and even political persecution of Chinese scientists in the US have shattered any lingering illusion about the legitimacy of America's actions. A broad consensus has now formed across Chinese society. The US strategic containment of China is not something that can be changed through one-sided goodwill. When China's top diplomat Yang Jiechi told US officials in 2021, "We thought too well of you," the remark quickly appeared on many people's
Worte sind Waffen und das reicht. Ja, sag das mal der repressiven Staatsgewalt, wenn du revoltierst. Kommunisten, die nicht revolutionär sind, sind keine Kommunisten und pazifistische Kommunisten haben das auch nicht, also haben sich auch noch nicht wirklich damit beschäftigt. Ich würde sagen, pazifistische Kommunisten haben noch nie ein Buch gelesen und nennen sich Anarchisten.
T-shirts and phone cases.
我们把你们想得太好了，我们认为你们会遵守基本的外交礼节。
Well, I think we thought too well of the United States. We thought that the US side will follow the necessary diplomatic protocols.
Most Chinese now agree that given China's size and economic influence, caving into US pressure is not an option. Plus, China is in a much stronger position than it was during Trump's first term. In 2018, China faced critical technology bottlenecks in 35 areas, including
Noch weiter als Anarchisten. Ist das ein Pokémon oder was?
lithography machines, semiconductors, and tactile sensors and components for medical imaging equipment. By 2025, China is expected to have overcome at least 85% of these bottlenecks. The broader economic landscape has now also shifted. Exports now accounted for less than 20% of China's GDP, with exports to the US representing only just
16% und 11%, ne?
14.7% of total exports, a significant drop from 2018 level when they made up 19.2%. While exporters are certainly feeling the pressure, it is the domestic stock market investors who have been taking the hardest hit since the start of the tariff war. On April 7th, over 3,000 shares in China's A-share market hit their limit-down levels, with the growth enterprise market index plummeting by 12.5%. The Korean War, known in China as the war to resist US aggressors and aid Korea in defending the motherland, is now being drawn as a parallel to the ongoing tariff war. The slogan, "Every generation has its own battle of Shangganli,"
Außerdem bin ich keineswegs Pazifist, weil ich ja reden kann.
became popular among people trying to boost morale. Shangganli
Wenn deine Worte so mächtig sind, wieso gibt's dann nichts, was ich von dir lesen oder mir anschauen könnte? I don't fucking know, aber wenn du so ein brillanter Theoretiker wärst, der die Weisheit mit Löffeln gefressen hat, dann ist halt mein Twitch-Chat nicht die beste Plattform. Animier ihn doch nicht. Doch. Lesen wird's kein Schwein, Alter. Und in der Zeit, wo er ein Buch schreibt, wird er mir nicht auf den Sack gehen hier.
was a grueling battle in the Korean War that the Chinese army won. Since then, Shangganling has become a symbol of perseverance in the face of hardship. The second strategy from
Ich will ja nicht berühmt werden. Dann bist du ein Wichser. Also sorry, dass ich das sagen muss, aber dann bist du halt ein Menschenfeind. Wenn du von dir selbst behauptest, dass du einen Weg gefunden hast, wie die Menschheit zu endgültigem Frieden gelangen kann und das nur mit Worten und du möchtest das nicht mit der Menschheit teilen, dann gehörst du halt eingesperrt. Halt. Ja?
From Mao that's gaining tremendous popularity is we will fight as long as they want to fight and fight on until complete victory is achieved. This statement was made by Mao Zedong in February 1953 during the Korean War, when no sign of armistice was on the horizon.
时间要打多久？我讲我们不要做决定。有过去是有道路门，以后是有20号耶，或者美国的将来的什么总统，由他们去决定。就是说，他们要打多久就打多久。
Aura.
On April 10th, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning shared a video clip of Mao Zedong delivering this statement on Twitter. She captioned it with the words, "We are Chinese. We're not afraid of provocations. We don't back down." The latest
Fucking bad news for America, Alter. Bad fucking news for America.
war mobilization from China's leadership came from Premier Li Qiang, who met with private business leaders on 9th April. He urged them, "I urge entrepreneurs to cultivate a deep sense of national responsibility, adapt proactively, and strengthen their enterprises contributing to the country's development." A sense of wartime solidarity is palpably taking shape. For example, Chinese company Jinghe Biotech, the world's largest producer of veterinary-grade chlortetracycline, a core growth promoter for US livestock industry, recently announced plans to raise the price of its products in the US. On top of that, to stabilize the stock market, hundreds of publicly traded companies, including CATL, Midea, and Kuizhou Maotai, have announced share buybacks or significant shareholder investments. Together, they've injected over 10 billion yuan to boost investor confidence. The third most frequently quoted strategy from Mao is guerrilla warfare when outnumbered. In Mao Zedong's book on guerrilla warfare, he famously wrote, "When guerrillas engage a stronger enemy, they withdraw when he advances, harass them when he stops, strikes him when he's wary, and pursue him when he withdraws." In other words, every move should be carefully calculated response to the enemy's actions. Nothing is preordained. Chinese stakeholders have long considered three possible scenarios for how the tariff war might unfold. Scenario 1. If all nations stand firm against the US, its supply chains could be severely disrupted. Scenario 2, if some resist while others compromise, the markets of resisting nations could be taken over by those who capitulate. And scenario 3, if all nations concede, the US might achieve a short-term victory, but a possibility of a second and third round of conflict remains. Currently, reality seems to be aligning with the second scenario. What is China's next move then? If China becomes the target of Trump's highest tariffs, Chinese companies will most likely find ways to circumvent costs, whether by rerouting trade, exporting intermediary goods, or establishing overseas factories. And these aligns with China's global policy anyway. To get through the turbulence caused by Trump's policies, the Chinese people rely on their collective memory for strength and guidance. Back in the 1980s, many looked to the US for inspiration during the uncertain times, but today they turn to Mao Zedong's quotations instead. For China's younger generation, the US is no longer seen as a beacon of democracy, or honestly a beacon of anything at all.
Knallt, Alter. Digga, wenn es eine Nation gibt, die Amerika in die Knie zwingen wird, dann ist das China. So ist es einfach. Bis jetzt gibt es keine Orga, die hinter mir steht, obwohl es alle gut finden, was ich vorhabe. Da bin ich mir jetzt unsicher. Was genau meinen sie denn? Dass Jan van Aken auf die Eins gehört? Dass der Islam die einzige Antwort auf unser Leben ist? Oder dass Afrika geeint werden sollte? Von dir. Du musst schon konkretisieren, hinter welchen deiner Gehirnfürze der letzten 2,5 Wochen sie jetzt stehen. Why not both? Naja. Also das mit Afrika war ein Banger. Ja, glaube ich auch. Freunde, ich verpiss mich heute. Mach Schluss. Wir sehen uns morgen wieder. Vielen herzlichen Dank für eure Aufmerksamkeit. Bleibt gesund, bleibt munter und Bimo.
Es rettet uns kein höheres Wesen, kein Gott, kein Kaiser noch Tribun. Uns aus dem Elend zu erlösen, können wir nur